They're not?
Good evening. I'll call the meeting of Monday, April 27th to order, and would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Beeden. Here. Councilmember Harris. Here. Councilmember Pemberton.
Here.
Councilmember Warden. Mayor Rep.
Here. You have the minutes before you from the regular meeting of March the 23rd. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So move.
Support.
Thank you, Council Members Ashford and Pemberton. Is there any changes, deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes will stand as submitted. Before we get to the presentations, I just want to say that we are holding the meeting in person tonight rather than having it electronically, because we feel that it's better for the public can actually see us. We can put it out on our YouTube, the station live, so everybody gets access to it, as well as the fact that a lot of people have been having technical difficulties with putting them online, so rather than taking that chance, we did decide to meet and sit appropriately 6 feet apart and wear our masks. Councilmember Harris is here. He just might not be on camera because we are spread that far apart. And Councilmember Warden is not here, but if he does end up showing up, then I will let you know at that time. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank our residents for being diligent in following the stay home that we have to do. And that brings to our next presentation, which will give us some further information.
So Dr. Annette Mercant of the St. Clair County Health Department will provide an update on COVID-19.
Yes. Okay, great. Super. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So this is going to be a very simple, scaled-down presentation. I don't want to waste your time. I'll give you guys a little time at the end to talk. As you are aware, this has been a very complex and drawn-out situation, and everybody's kind of in a different place with this, so hopefully this will get just caught up. So next slide, please. So really, I'm just going to overview some basic definitions that are frequently misunderstood, and go through some simple data, not so much to tell you that today's numbers, all I can do that is really to describe to you how we use that data, how we get it, why we're presenting it the way we are, and then we'll talk briefly about isolation versus quarantine. Okay, next slide, please. So case definitions. You hear a lot about probable cases, or excuse me, positive cases. And the state and the CDC utilize two definitions for cases. A confirmed case, or even a confirmed death, is defined as a patient who has tested positive for COVID. Now, there's a lot of discussion, I guess I should say, about deaths. Deaths are only indicated as COVID-related if they're a direct cause of death or directly associated with the cause of death. So if you got killed in a car accident and you had a test for COVID, it was positive, that would not likely go on your death certificate. In fact, it would not be likely that you'd even be tested for it. So that's a common misunderstanding, and I would just say overall, we grossly probably underestimate our death causes from COVID. Next, or excuse me, yeah, so the next one is probable cases. And the probable case is something that we're going to use as time goes by, less because hopefully the test will be more available. So a probable case is a case that has all the clinical symptoms associated with COVID, the respiratory compromise, the fevers, some of the other symptoms, and it meets the epidemiology link. In other words, if the person is from a location that has widespread transmission, such as St. Clair County, and or they've been directly associated with a confirmed case. And they can also have some presumptive laboratory evidence. We have, as you know, some other labs out there that are being used, some antibody tests. These are not confirmatory tests. So you may see a person who did not have a positive COVID test by PCR testing and is still listed as a case. The state and the CDC both list these cases as positive, and they often are listing them now separately as a probable and confirmed. So far in St. Clair County, we've only had a handful of probable cases because they're only defined as probable when our staff directly interviews people who have gone from being in quarantine to becoming symptomatic and they don't get tested. But we will more than likely be reporting out positive cases as probables and confirmed as well in the future. So that's why I'm bringing that up. Next slide. So what's a recovered case? A recovered case is somebody that has met the definition of clinically improved. That means they've had at least 7 days from the first day of their symptoms, 3 days being afebrile without any kind of medications, and overall feeling better, whichever is longest. So the very soonest you could be considered recovered is after 7 days. Most people who are suffering COVID are taking considerably longer to become clinically improved. Now, that definition can also, you can also define a recovered case with somebody who has 2 consecutive negative COVID tests. That has not been used much up till now because testing has not been very available. As it becomes more available, we'll probably see more cases defined as recovered based on negative testing. We use both definitions, and I would say the majority of the recovered cases we have in our database is from the first definition, and that is generally not based on self-reporting. It's based on direct interviews with the cases, with the patients, and our staff. They call them and they check on them, and they define when the person's been removed from isolation based on this criteria. They're actually sent a letter officially that they're out of isolation. Next slide. Okay, good. I thought that's how it was supposed to be. Isolation versus quarantine, another quick definition. I think this is really important. Next slide. So isolation is really, both tools are very important to control communicable diseases. Isolation and quarantine are very different, though, if you stick to the definitions. Isolation means you take a person who's sick and you remove them from the rest of the population so they don't get other people sick. Quarantine is you take a person who is well and presumed to be exposed to somebody who has the contagious disease, and you separate that well person for a period of time and make sure they don't get sick. Both measures are extremely important, and as we look towards the future of controlling, especially as we go back, we back away from our stay-at-home orders, we go back to business, isolation and quarantine measures are going to be extremely important. You're going to hear about case investigations, which is basically finding the person who's sick and making sure they're isolated, and something called contact tracing, where we evaluate every person that person's been in contact, and we make sure that those people go into quarantine for those 14 days. So a lot of confusion, and this is misused across the board by everyone, but I want you to understand that they're really 2 separate modalities that we use, both very important. Okay, next slide. I think we're going to get into the data now. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the current process that we're reporting our data now. As you know, it's been through several iterations. As we have different data to report and as we identify what the public wants, we've been trying to respond. But as you know, we've been reporting cumulative cases. That's total cases that come to us through the Michigan Data Surveillance System. This is the official system that the state uses to track and input people who've had the disease. That is a fluid system. It's a real-time system. And that's why, for a while, when we were reporting day-by-day data, and I think we've talked to several of you about this, that the next day you would see a different number from the day before. That's because every day, staff across the state, thousands of people literally, are going into that database, investigating cases, removing them, putting them into different jurisdictions. So we might have, for instance, several cases that are belonging to Macomb County. They get moved, they get shifted. So that is a very fluid surveillance system. This is not, the information we give you is not final in any way. These aren't scrubbed numbers. These are real-time numbers. These are the numbers that we pull directly from the system at 8 o'clock in the morning and put them out. Hospitalizations come directly from hospitalization reports. Our hospitals notify us when people are COVID positive. Likewise, deaths that come directly from either our hospital or our medical examiner. So that data is cumulative as well. And of course, the recovered cases I just described to you, those are put into the system when our staff identifies them as having recovered from those 2 definitions. Now, there was a lot of questions about hospitalization data, and we do have a system called EM Resources that all of our hospital systems and our long-term care facilities now enter daily. Bed counts, the number of COVID patients, the number of ventilators in use, ICU beds. It's a fairly decent real-time system, but I think what people really wanted to know And again, that's a system that will change constantly by numbers. But I think what people want to know is there capacity? Are we reaching the point where our hospital systems can't keep up? Are we reaching a point where our ventilators are at risk? And so far, I don't want to knock on wood, it's silly, but I would say this data has been pretty consistent. We were seeing an upward trend for that beginning of April, and in the last couple weeks, we have seen a very steady, I wouldn't say even a decline, but a very consistent, stable line with the percentage of COVID patients in the hospitals. We have total 51 ventilators in the county. That's about 10 more or 11 more than when we started. And we haven't ever even gotten close to using all those ventilators. But this is something we'll watch. We watch every single day. This EM resource is pulled up on my desktop, and I look at it first thing in the morning and first thing at night, and we watch how that goes. That last number, 10, okay, so the new cases, I would say, is the most irrelevant number up there. And I just want to say, when you're looking at numbers, absolute numbers, the difference between 10 and 12, as I just described to you, or 10 and 7, is quite honestly, with the way we're presenting real-time data, is quite honestly, it's irrelevant. It is the trend. That number changes because of the numbers of cases that were put in by all the different staff. Some days they'll get to a whole bunch of them, and some days on the weekends they may not. We'll be working with one staff at home. And so that number varies a lot based on how much work they get done on that day, and also how much is moved by other counties as well. Okay, our demographics, male, female age, I would say is no surprise. There's really not a lot of difference there that we're seeing with other communities. Older populations have a greater risk for hospitalization. We don't have enough deaths to really statistically analyze that. I mean, I could do it, but it's just, it would be skewed. You need more than 20 cases to really do any justice to data that way. And ethnicity and disparities are consistent. We've done this, it's not up there, but it is consistent with our demographics of the community. So we aren't seeing a disproportionate amount of African American deaths or Hispanic deaths, at least not yet. I would just caution you that overall 300 cases is a very low number. It's really not enough to even generalize to the whole community. If you took 300 total cases and we kind of considered that 20% of our cases might end up in the hospital, we're looking at maybe less than 5% of the population being impacted at this point. So it's really hard to use this data to generalize. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then these are the two slides that we were trying to adjust for everyone so you could see the overall change in total cases. The blue, the area on the blue is just total cases. The dotted line below it is recovered, and as you can see, the difference between recovered and total is the active cases. And if you just look at that, what you can see is a fairly consistent line. I mean, it's a very consistent area. We are generally keeping our active cases in a pretty narrow range. They're not drastically increasing. Our recovered cases total are increasing, but that area between total and recovered is staying pretty stable. It's very reassuring to me to see that. Next slide. And then even more reassuring is you look at the total cases compared to hospitalizations and deaths. Hospitalizations is the middle line, and then the bottom is deaths. And if you'll notice, the difference between this, that trajectory and the one before is that these are much flatter. And I can't explain this other than maybe our numbers just aren't enough, but despite having ongoing cases, we are not seeing the same proportional amount of deaths, which means either our population's a little healthier, maybe our hospitals are doing a better job, but it's really, quite honestly, too soon to really talk about why this would be the case. But if you look at that line there, you can really see that it doesn't have the same trajectory as the recovered does. So that's good news. Next slide. And then this one we've shared with people because they really wanted to know where everything was. And again, I want to caution everyone that this number should only, this graph should only tell you really one thing, this map, and that is we have COVID cases throughout the county. Less populated areas have less cases, more heavily dense population has higher cases. This is very typical. COVID transmission seems to be directly related to the density of a population, how closely people are to each other. And this does not mean that Port Huron has a higher risk of infection than Algonac. I want to emphasize that. Port Huron is just the most heavily dense population area, and the numbers correspond to that. So you are at risk for being exposed to COVID no matter where you go in this county, and there is not a hot zone, as far as I'm concerned. The hot zone is the proximity you have to another person, and obviously being exposed to somebody who's sick. Okay, next slide. So these are the resources. I would caution all of you, it's distressing to look at Facebook and social media. The misinformation that's floating around is absolutely stunning. And this is a real condition, it's a real virus, it's a real threat. Stay-at-home orders have definitely appeared to have slowed the course. There is no question we are all seeing a slowing throughout the state, certainly here. But as I mentioned to you before, clearly less than 5% of the population has been infected by this. Even in the most broadest, for every case, there's 40 cases that we've not identified. We still have a very low population that's been infected. And what that means is when we loosen our social distancing measures and we're not paying as much attention to staying away from each other, this virus will be transmitted again. Any degree of loosening of social distancing will increase risk. Now, you got to weigh that risk against the economic and social events of this prolonged, isolation, which is difficult on everyone and it's devastating to our economy. What I want people to understand is that we open up, there is a defined increase of risk that goes along with that. And personally, I think that we have to just manage that risk. We have to watch it and see where it's going. And if it's accelerating beyond our desires, then we just pull back again. But this is not something that's over, and I think that's one of the things I'm seeing that's most distressing, is that people feel, well, once the stay-home order is rescinded and it's over, it's over. The virus is still very much with us, and we all have to continue to be very careful. I believe that's all I have, so questions or comments or...
I appreciate the report. I think it's very, very good for our residents to hear that. And I'll open it up to anybody on council that has a question.
Mayor, I just have one quick question. If somebody asked me, is the only reason. If someone's brought here from another county to be placed in our hospitals, which I know has happened but not often, are they counted in our counts or are they counted in the original county?
They're counted by the county they live in. But if they've been here more than 2 weeks, 2 weeks they turn into ours. So if they're transferred to a nursing home and they become a permanent resident and they've been here more than 2 weeks, it would count as ours. So where a lot of this number variability comes from, because we'll go in and we'll realize that somebody is really from Sanilac County or something like that and they get moved. They will count as far as the hospital counts go, and they will count as far as the long-term care facility counts, which are now also being posted. But as far as our total county counts, it would only count if they've been here more than a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Mayor Rep,
Go ahead.
you mentioned that when you were showing the one slide with the, the graph that has the big jump that's constantly climbing. Yes, that one.
Yes, ma'am.
That the active cases, which is essentially, right, your total cases minus your total recovered, right?
Right.
It doesn't appear that we usually show that number in and of itself.
No.
Is there a reason that we don't do that?
Well,
Because like you said, it's,
yeah.
but you said it's very reassuring.
Sure.
But we don't.
And, Anthony here is my informatics guy. He's our sole data person. I would have to say that we've gone round and round about what we should show. There is a point
Right.
where you can just put too much information out there. And that's why I was trying to show just visually, if you look at the area of the graph between the recovered and the total, you can see that there's a fairly consistent number that as we remove people, in fact, I would even say, if you're careful with looking at that, and it's a little hard day to day. We start getting into 7-day averages, it'll be a little clearer. But I would say we have more people recovering at this point than we do that are still active.
Yeah.
Reassuring. But again, I've had several people ask me that question. We can certainly revise our data to...
I just wonder, I
Any way you like.
think like you said, it's reassuring to see that.
It is.
And there's a balance between wanting people to take the precaution and the
Right.
seriousness of it, but at the same time, be reassured that what we're
And
doing
it's
is
true.
working and things like
And I
that.
can tell you, though, that recovered data is probably a little bit more accurate, only because I know my staff has directly counted that case and identified them as recovered, whereas active cases can fluctuate so greatly depending on that data shift in the system. So, yeah, we can do it that way if that makes people feel it's more real. I'm not sure what's going to make people feel real, so I would be open to your suggestions as far as what people are really interested in seeing. It's sometimes not really clear to me what they want.
Nice.
We're trying.
No, you've made a lot of changes since you first started putting your report, so I know.
Don't you hate these masks?
I know, it's like,
Comment about what
lie down or
they
you
do. It's
feel like
they
you're
were horrible.
suffocating, you know?
Yes,
The
yes.
two. I haven't quite figured out yet what it is, but I did have a quick question, and that's, when do you expect to have more testing? Do you, and...
Oh, that's an absolutely excellent question. Last week, I told you, I think I was telling everybody this week, I do think we're going to have some more testing this week. In fact, I'm fairly certain Algonac will have a site on Wednesday open up through the Community First Health Centers. They're going to have their center be a testing site. We're actively supporting a couple other private physicians who want to become testing sites. I don't know if we'll ever be a Rite Aid site.
Yeah.
That is chosen by the state and at corporate level that we don't seem to have any impact on. But I think we're going to see a now I can tell you, for instance, our desire is to go into a couple of our nursing homes and test everyone. It's going to take about 280 tests, and we were told last week that we could get those tests overnight delivery, and we're still waiting.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that happens a lot with us. So we're going to piece it together and try and get it done, but we're hoping.
So you're hoping, I would assume, that it gets to a point where you don't have to actually go to a doctor for a prescription in order to...
There's that,
Yeah.
although I would venture to say that there's ways of getting tested without a doctor's prescription. What you're missing out, though, even if it's through telemedicine, is the doctor's assessment.
Right.
And one of the things we ran into is during flu season, we were also screening people for flu because we didn't want to overlook the opportunity to treat people for flu because there's a treatment for flu.
Right.
And if you just got yourself tested without a doctor's script, there was nobody to treat you for flu.
Yeah.
We had a case where it came back strep, and it was, so it does help to have a physician evaluate you to make sure that you're not overlooking other things that are important. People still get sick from other things. And so I personally think if it's not too difficult, is to get a physician's order, because then you've got a pair of eyes on you, and if you're getting sicker, you have somebody else to talk to.
I guess I would just be more concerned that there's probably a segment of population that doesn't have a regular doctor,
That is true.
and it might deter them from ever getting checked because they don't know who to call.
That is true. And I have to say there are still issues with paying for testing, even though all insurances pay for it. If you're uninsured, it's not quite so clear. The People's Clinic is doing a nice job of doing assessments and trying to get people tested at Lake Huron Medical. That's where I'd send people at this point. But once we have Community First Health Centers open, they also have a sliding scale for uninsured people as well.
Any other, go ahead. Yep.
Actually, as I listened to you answer pretty much what I wanted to ask about the people of color, and I know we're only like 7% across the board, and when you have that low number, you can't do anything with it, so it doesn't.
Well, if we have enough cases, we
Yeah,
will,
so it doesn't
unfortunately. But
configure-
right now, I can't really speak to that
Right.
as far as being disproportionate.
No, I'm just glad you acknowledged it, and so
Well,
I
yeah.
appreciate that. And I did have a question that you did answer about our nursing homes. Are we doing anything?
We are doing nursing homes, so I would say that's our next big hurdle. So we have, as you know, 2 nursing homes that have cases in them. This is now posted publicly on the MBHH COVID site, coronavirus site, so you can go and see in every county where these facilities are. Both of our facilities total have 26 cases as of today.
Okay.
And as far as we're concerned, they're working very diligently and well. They both have dedicated wings to put these people in. They're not mixing them around. They're following all the right protocols. And as soon as we have this testing capability, we are going to go out and test everyone just to try and allow some semblance of how many, for instance, asymptomatic positives there are. try and increase that isolation quarantine component to reduce any further spreading. But congregate setting infections are going to be a very big challenge. Another big area of challenge is in our homeless population and some of our populations that are transient. And there's a great deal of discussion about making sure that they get tested before they come into the facility, but then you have to have a place to put them if they're positive. And so there's a lot of strategic planning that's going in, but we're very actively looking at that and trying to figure out solutions to that, so.
Okay. And then another question, like our hospitals, they have enough PPE, because, I mean, the availability is
That was a big
huge.
problem at the beginning, and it may be a problem yet, we don't know, but
don't
at
know.
this point, there seems to be adequate PPE. I would say there's adequate PPE for almost everybody. We're giving them to healthcare providers now that want to do their own testing. So it's opened up a quite bit. This delay, despite how you feel about it, this delay has bought us amazingly precious time that has allowed us to build our PPE supplies, that's allowed more scientific information to come out about treatments. We're being a little bit more strategic with treatments. There is a lot of advantage to slowing that curve down and giving us more time. It's painstaking for people because the longer they're in the house and the harder it is for everyone and the worse it is for the economy. But for you as a patient, if you're going to get COVID, it's good for you. You're better off today going into a hospital with COVID than you were when this first started. I feel that very strongly. It's going to be a benefit.
And then lastly, and you know, and I'd like to commend you and your staff and all the people that really work with you, because on a day-to-day basis, I just look you up, and the city manager makes sure we get your reports. How is this communicated throughout our city? Do they have the same ability to?
We post it on our website.
Okay.
We post it on social media. Justin, our EOC person, he puts out kind of a summary, and he puts it out to all our municipal leaders. Again, it is for community use, so if you feel like you want to put it somewhere that people can see it, or if you feel there's somewhere else we should be posting it, please let us know. We'll be happy to do that.
Okay, that's good. Okay, again, I just want to thank you, Dr. Mercantile, and your staff back here,
Welcome.
everybody, because it does make a great difference. And just as a FYI, the data looks fine to me, because I think we have to be careful, because data, the root meaning is the message that you would like to
Thank
convey.
you. That is
It's
how I feel.
about the
Although
message.
we don't want it to be arbitrary or confusing
No.
either, so
Right.
that's an important piece.
So I think that your data guy back there, you're right on spot with that. The worst thing to do is to confuse the public, and that is simplified, and it's across the board, it's just right in your face, and I love it.
Okay,
So
good.
thank you very much.
I'm glad to hear that. Mhm. We needed a little nudging, but we're getting there.
That's all right.
Just to add to, just a second, just to add to what you were talking about, what you asked her about how it was available, it's also available on our homepage of our website too.
Good.
So that's out there and changed every day and updated, as well as other information, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw another fish in the water here with Dr. Mercantile. You know, the group that's working together on this, Mr. Westmiller and our own Mark White, who used to be a firefighter in Fort Owens, and they've really kept us kind of up to date with what's going on.
Good.
It's a changing world, and if you look at, no matter what site you look at, everybody's got something a little bit different. But I think the St. Clair County measure is a lot better measurement of what's going on than those
There's two things we have in our advantage here. One is that we work well together, and any one of you can reach out, you can all reach out and say, I don't get this, what's this? And rather than be offended, we just roll up our sleeves and try and do a better job. And, you know, the other thing is we have a smaller population. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. You know, the problem, I just read earlier today that a lot of the opening strategies are going to be based regionally. And our region is associated with Oakland County and Macomb County, which might put us at a disadvantage, because quite honestly, we don't have the same issues that Oakland and Macomb County have right now. So this is a changing field. It is very complicated, and it's going to just be a long time as we work through it. So.
I have a question on this.
Sure.
You said that after 2 weeks of the patients being your transfers in, they're then counted as our numbers. Can you roughly ballpark, out of the total number we have, 300 and some,
Right.
what percentage
Oh.
Like 20, 30?
Oh, God, no, it's very small. A handful of hospital transfers, and I would say a handful of nursing home transfers. You know, and it changes a lot because sometimes they're transferred in just briefly and then they're transferred out. The systems use their sister systems to kind of, when they got overloaded, they'd move them up, but they were quickly moved out again. I wouldn't say they count as our deaths if they're from a different county, even if they've been here for a month on the vent, but the nursing homes do. When they come and they kind of get settled, they become our residents.
My last question
Sure.
for you personally. I know you do, you know,
I'm tired.
I bet you are.
Yeah, I'm tired. Yeah, but I've got good support, I got great teams, and I'm just, you know, taking it one day at a time, but thank you for asking.
Yeah, this is tough on you and your department. You kind of
Yeah,
got thrown
our
this.
staff doesn't do anything else but this.
No, I don't know how they
And
could.
there's important public health work that needs to be done. You know, we need to open up immunizations, we need to open up some of our services, and honestly, I'm not sure how we're going to do it.
Yeah,
We're just going to keep working as best as we can, and we'll figure it out.
well, good job, and thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
so much.
tonight.
You're welcome,
Thank you.
anytime. You guys need any of this, I'm more than happy to come back
Mayor?
anytime. All right.
Thank you. Yes, oh, I'm sorry,
question.
Councilmember Warden's here now.
Annette?
Sorry.
Annette? Hello?
Yeah, it's working.
All right.
But you got to talk right up into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. First, I just want to say, Dr. Mercantat, our St. Clair County, we're blessed to have you in this position for this unknown. When it first came on, your patience and then your poise of as the data came and how you got it out. Again, it's stressful 24/7 of an unknown and so many factors. And I just want to say, you know, overall, I just am very, very proud when we look at us compared to some of the other cities and counties and so forth. And there's so many of us that have shut down businesses, have stayed home. They get a little frustrated, and you know, but the overall result has been this mitigation, at least slowing of this spread, and it shows in our numbers. And the next phase, again, with this reopening, I think, is the thing that kind of worries everybody, but we have to get back to life a little, and it's going to be, we're going to have to brace ourselves again for, yeah.
Risk benefit, I mean, really, that's what it's about, lifestyle and life. We just got to make sure we,
And if we can get everybody to understand that this thing is still here, as long as the cases are still being reported, that virus is still alive, and I don't know what you call it, jumping, or it's on where you pick it up from, you know, from handles and doorknobs and public spaces and coughing. But hopefully we can do that and continue this good. Unfortunate, there's a few deaths and some hard times, but overall for the county, I think you've done a great job, and I think everybody.
yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. It shows you, though, with social distancing is really what's made this difference, that inanimate objects and all that are important, but it's really that face-to-face contact that seems to drive this, and so we got to remember that as we get back into the world. Keep your space. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on with the agenda. The next item on the agenda is public comment. I don't see anybody in the audience, so we're just going to move forward with that to consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved?
Was that you, Councilmember? That was, yeah, it's a little muffled, so I'm going to have to make it a little bit Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Support?
Councilmember Beeden?
Mayor Rep,
Yes.
will you remove Resolution 2032, number 4? It's the capital improvement program. Just have one thing to point out on that.
Okay. Then we'll take the vote on the balance of the items.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. The items on the consent agenda received and filed notification from the Liquor Control Commission about an application for transfer of a 2019 Class C SDM licensed business with Sunday sales permit, outdoor service area, dance entertainment permit, and living quarters permit, direct connection 2 and 3 bars from Larry L. Jones to Southwest 321 LLC. It's located at 321 Huron Avenue. The other thing is receive the proposed 2021 Downtown Development Authority budget and scheduled a public hearing for May the 11th. Approve the scheduling of May 11th to receive comments on the general needs in the community development, housing, and special services, utilizing the addition of the CDBG care funds, and scheduling a second public hearing for May 26th to hear comments on the proposed amendment to the 2019 annual action plan for the purpose of adding the addition of these funds. Also authorize the extension of the City of Port Huron income tax second quarter estimated tax payments due previously on June 30th will be moved to July 31st without penalties and interest. And we'll move then to, from the city manager, number 1.
Accepting the bid from Weiss Construction Company LLC in the amount of $1,354,500 for the grit system improvements at the wastewater treatment plant.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Second?
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, and I believe our city manager has something to say on this.
Well, I just have, if you have any questions, you have a briefing packet attached from Director Witter. These are our original components of the wastewater plant. This is essentially the grit bucket system. We did do an alternate bid when we bid it, so when we bid the replacement of the first grit system, we put on what would be an additional cost of doing the second grit system, and we found that there was a estimated cost savings of about $292,000 to take them both now. So there was economies of scale, and so we believe that it was in the best financial interest of the city, instead of waiting a year and a half to 2 years to do the second one, to realize that $300,000, right around $300,000 savings now. So we did execute the bid alternate that was included in that. So it was originally bid for the one, and then we had the alternate that would allow us to see if there's any cost savings, because sometimes there's not, but here there was significant cost savings, so we have included that. It'll be over 2 fiscal years in the budget.
Is there any questions from council?
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Harris.
just looking at this, it looks like there's a little bit of change in the process and how this thing goes. And it sounds like it might take longer to process the fluids and things that come through the grid system, but it'll be more efficient in its own way.
It should be in the fact that the components are newer. Yep.
Mayor Rep?
Yes, Councilmember Ashford.
So I was doing some stuff on this, and so I actually, I don't know if this is where you were going with this. The grid system will improve our performance over at the wastewater,
Correct.
and actually, it will reduce cost of maintenance also
Right.
with that. And it also will sustain the life of it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so that's the bottom line to get us to where we need to be with the wastewater and the operational aspect.
Correct. It's been a significant drag on the repair costs over the last couple of years there.
Oh,
You are
okay.
correct.
Is there any other questions, comments?
Mayor Rep?
Councilmember Warden.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say you mentioned Director Witter and yourself, putting it out, it was thoughtful to put that out for the option and to have potentially both done at the same time. This is the wastewater plant. This is some of the, again, the stuff is pretty old, and to put this investment all at once, at least to lock down a cost, it'd be nice to have that, both of those channels redone. So thank you for doing that together. That's a $200,000, $280,000 savings is a good thing for Port Huron.
Madam Mayor and Council, if you look to the last page, you will realize that because we co-own that plant with the various townships, only 67% will be actually billed to us, which is right around $913,000. The remainder will be billed out to the counties, or sorry, the townships.
Yeah. Anything else from anyone? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden? Yes. Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 2, please.
Accepting the proposal from Trojan Development Company Incorporated in the amount of $153,500 for the replacement of the low-lift check valve and pump rebuild at the water filtration plant.
Discussion, but I think this kind of like backs up the grid system, because doesn't it?
Not quite, they're different plants, but what this is an environmental issue, because at the water filtration plant, we bring water in and the sediment in, If we
Right.
don't have this check valve, we could have a backflow situation back out into the river, which would violate our permits and violate the Clean Water Act.
Okay, but theoretically, having a grid system, this would be more pronounced. in
Yeah,
that.
it's the same,
Yeah,
same
it's the
theory as
same.
the cost savings and maintenance costs.
Right,
Yep.
yeah. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mayor Rapp?
Yes,
Just
Councilmember
one
Ward.
quick question on this. Is there, with the, I think there's one, or the final bidder here to do this, is there if there's any issue when they replace this, is there any service or some type of the equipment that they're putting in, some type of guarantee in case we have an issue sooner than we would expect?
Or you mean during the replacement or actually?
After they're done?
No, it would still be the same operations.
Okay. so-
It's a very primitive system if you guys
Yeah.
have ever toured that boathouse, or
Okay.
I call it the lower level, I call it the boathouse. But
I was hoping.
Yeah,
Thanks.
including boathouse, yep.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes?
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 3.
Accepting the proposal from Secure Door LLC in the amount of $33,233.74 for the removal and replacement of 4 existing overhead garage doors at the city wastewater's treatment plant.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
That's Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Support? Oh, okay.
Councilmember Pemberton. And can you give us a little background on this?
Yes, there are doors original to the facility, I believe 1951, and I believe they expanded a little bit in the 70s, and they're just old doors that are falling apart.
30 years.
Any other questions from anybody?
Mayor Rapp?
Yes, Councilmember Warden.
Rather than going through this packet after I reviewed, I thought, is this one that we actually have some type of a grant also that we're receiving?
No.
To offset some of this price?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Rapp,
Yes, Councilmember
just
Harris.
one little question on that. I see that we didn't get the low bidder because of missing the photo eye and the bump stop. Is that kind of like a snooze you lose?
It would degrade the bid, it would degrade the bid process if someone didn't comply with the bid, and then we allowed them to retool their bid to become low bidder. So to keep a fair bidding process, you have to meet the bid specifications. Because at that point, we've unsealed the bids, so that everyone sees what the bids are, and you completely take away the, yeah.
Integrity.
It really is if you compare what we paid for the north end door on MOC.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes?
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 4, please.
Accepting the bid from Major League Landscape and Lawn Care LLC in the amount of $2,149 per mow and trim of approximately 150 city-owned properties, various city facilities, and public right-of-ways.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Second?
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is this about the same as what it was last year?
Shockingly, this has got to be a cutthroat business because these guys, I mean, every year they're well below the cost of inflation. So they, it's about on target. And both for the first one and the second one, both Lighthouse and Clean Cut have done stellar work for us. They're great companies.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 5.
Accepting the bid from Clean Cut Maintenance in the amount of $1,500 per mow and trim for lawn maintenance of various city-owned parks and properties.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
Support?
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Pemberton. Can you tell me what the difference is between these two?
Parks.
Well, they're both for parks and properties and,
Yeah, I believe that some are used for the properties we own, like from blight elimination dollars and residential properties, and they also require different types of equipment. So some require push mowers, some require larger decks. We broke out those properties who use different types of equipment so that you don't have to get a whole new trailer of equipment to do some type of properties versus the others. So it's based on the equipment used. That's why we broke them out that way.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead,
Does this in
Councilman.
any way interfere with, I know, the dead grass and everything?
Well, they don't have to cut it as often.
They don't have
so. No, you bring up an excellent question. So right now, we are working with the insurance company. So that, as we all know, that was not a city issue, it's a private contractor who is insured as required, and the insurance has given us no problems. They're going to pay for the whole thing, which will be sod. They'll be replacing the sod. And the reason why we require sod is planting seed takes several seasons to kind of establish itself and become pretty decent turf, and parks are used heavily trafficked, so we don't have 2 or 3 years to close our parks and greenways down. So they will be putting all sod in the next couple weeks. That project will begin at no cost to the city, and they'll be watering that, and then it'll be cut just as it has before.
Oh.
But remember, we get charged per the cut, and we dictate when it needs cut. So if we put that sod in, it takes some time in some areas where we don't need to cut, then we just won't have them cut that time, and we'll reduce that cost.
Oh, okay, excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Warden,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Mayor Rapp.
Yes. Item 6.
Accepting the quote from Axon Enterprises Incorporated in the total amount of $43,375 for the purchase of 25 tasers for use by the police department, utilizing a 5-year payment plan of $9,075 to be paid annually.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, I got a little bit of everybody that time. Councilmember Ashford, supported by Councilmember Pemberton. Does this one have any grant funds for it?
Yes, actually, we received $2,500 a year from MMRA, our insurance company, to purchase these. Plus, we also budget $7,500. Chief Platzer and his team did an excellent job. The current tasers are getting old and they're becoming obsolete. But instead of replacing them all at once, he wants to do them in phases so that if technology changes or better technology comes out in the next couple of years, they can roll that in. Also, they've done it in a fashion where we can continue tapping that $2,500 a year, because you get that once a year. So by doing it over 5 years, you max out that grant every year for the next 5 years to help reduce the cost. So it's kind of innovative to maximize your grant dollars plus your budgeted dollars, and also to account that if something changes in the next 5 years, we can deviate from our plan to adopt better new technology. So it's pretty smart how they did it.
Sure is. Any questions?
Mayor Rapp?
Yes,
Just a
Councilman.
comment, thank you to Police Department for coming up with that phase, and also utilizing that yearly grant or yearly stipend they can get from the risk management company.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just think it's a smart move because while we know who holds the future, we don't know about the future, and having our policemen with the right equipment makes all the difference in the world. And I like the job that they did in going about doing this. The instructor, Ryan? Yeah, because I see the quality and the cost factor that you already mentioned makes a whole world of difference in this piece of
One of the things
equipment.
I'll add to that is, in
Yeah.
addition to cost savings, our police department has the professional capacity where we do in-house training.
Right.
Where other agencies have to pay and send their people out. We actually do in-house training for all of our people on these things. And we actually help other outside agencies as well. So there's cost savings from having that professional capacity within house to do this as well.
Yeah, I thought that was significant, okay.
If there's no other questions, we'll take the vote.
If any of you want to be tased, we can arrange that too at one of the training days. Chief's always been trying to tase me, so.
Didn't work.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Councilmember Warden,
Yes.
Mayor Rapp.
Yes. Item 7.
Accepting the quote from Midwest Public Safety LLC in the amount of $24,412.50 for the purchase of an additional 25 body cameras and accessories for use by the police department.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Beeden. Is there any discussion?
Just real quick, right now, body camera technology is relatively new in the last couple of years. We've been rolling out. When we first rolled it out, we kind of did it in small amounts to make sure it worked. In fact, at one point, we sent cameras back and brought new cameras in to make sure it was the best interest for our city and that they worked best. What we're doing here is this will outfit every sworn officer with a body camera. And the reason why that's important is right now they're sharing. So if you're a detective or you're an officer who's responding from home, you don't have to go back to the office to grab your camera. You can go to the scene, begin doing interviews, begin interfacing with your personnel and your clients. This will provide every officer a body camera. They can take it home with them. They can carry it with them. So they have that resource. They don't need to come back to City Hall to get a body camera. They know when they grab it, they know it's going to be charged. There's personal responsibility and personal accountability there. And so again, this will be every officer, every sworn officer will have a body camera, including detectives.
It's a good thing.
Mayor Rep,
Yes,
could
Councilmember
I
Harris.
ask one question? Looking at technology today, how far are we away from getting a device like these cameras that'll have facial recognition?
I personally, at this point, wouldn't support facial recognition technology. I think there's a lot of civil rights issues and racial issues tied there that we've seen in Detroit. So I think we're far, far away from that ever happening here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden? Yes. Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move to resolutions. Number 1.
Authorizing 12 payments.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, any questions on the bills?
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Harris.
just one little question here. The one is on P.M. Blau, the architect, and it's for McMorrin, and it's only for $2,486. But I guess my question is this addition to the January payment that we made?
I believe so. And the change was we found that it was cheaper to pull I believe it was the sprinkler system, the fountain separate, and the ice separate than component in the original side. So we looked at, was it cheaper to use an outside engineering firm for those components or to have her do it? We decided that it was cheaper to have her do it, and that's why this came into play.
Thank you.
Yep. If I can remember properly, yes, I believe so.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Beeden? Yes. Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 2.
Authorizing the Municipal Employees Retirement System of Michigan to reallocate the total market value of plan assets on a divisional basis.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support?
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Pemberton.
Quick explanation. So if you're, say, a patrol officer and you start out in patrol and you retire out of command, or you start in streets and you end up, or start in utilities and you end up in Parks and Recreation or in management or division leadership, those assets don't always transfer. So we had disparities, and one fund would be overfunded, one fund would be underfunded, which doesn't make any sense because we're responsible for the whole liability. So what we did with the $53 million, and part of our financial plan was with the $53 million, we would begin using an aggregate base, meaning we leveled them all off since the plans are closed now. Since the plans are closed and there's not going to be differentials in the liabilities, we would take that, aggregate it off. So you see the deposit made at $31 million. We aggregated it off to every fund is now equal, and our funding ratio is 89.5%, which is remarkably good. In addition to the $53 million disposable of the aggregate, remember, we put in on the 31st of March, after all at the bottom of the market. So our $53 million that in went in the bottom of the market, I think it was about 18,000, just shy of 19,000. The market today is up near 23,000. Our $53 million has risen that gain. We will continue to mitigate the losses on our original assets from the first quarter, but we really believe by the end of the year we could be in a very great position, I think significantly, if the market comes back. wholly, or in great part, by the end of the year, we're going to see this as a remarkable, remarkable outcome for the city, having dumped that on the 31st of March. That's what 30 days will happen. So if there's anything that the COVID stock market crash has been, is we bought in cheap. We bought it at the best time ever, to be quite frank, in history.
So we'll still be safe.
Yeah, yeah.
Any questions for the city manager?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor Up.
Councilmember Warden?
First is just, this is just going to be a one-time reallocation, and then moving forward,
You are correct.
everybody, it's going to go across all divisions
Correct.
because they're all closed. Was there any need or any input from any of the unions that had any concern about this, or did they have any say?
It doesn't affect them in any way, because at the end of the day, we're the holder of the liability, so it doesn't affect them in any way.
Okay, so again, some of them I see, some have a decrease, and then of course, so basically taking from all, leveling it all off, starting fresh is what this, or starting with everything level is what this is doing now moving forward.
Correct, and remember that the plan is closed,
Yep.
so there's no new employees on there, so if there's disproportionate amount of hiring in one division versus another division, that doesn't matter anymore because the plans are closed to new hires. So by mitigating the deviation abilities there, we've put a lot more stability in it, which would allow the aggregate to make more sense.
Okay. And this will allow, I read in your this or supplemental thing was, this is going to allow now MERS to redo and update the new valuations. The one, I think that this was based off of, or the previous one was December 31st, 2017.
19.
2017 was the one you sent to us from MERS that said, hey, we're now up to 89% with the things funded. And I just was wondering, are we going to get, we already have 2018 before this. When are we getting the next, are we getting an adjusted 2018 year end that we already got last spring now with this?
No. So
We're
what
not?
they'll do is they'll do a new valuation, because we have to pay for the valuations.
Pardon me?
We have to pay for the valuation. So they'll be doing a new valuation. We should get that valuation using, and the issue is that the valuation we're going to use we should get by June of this year. The valuation data they're going to use is 12/19 data. So you won't factor in Q1 or Q2 of this year. So really, we'll get new valuation data, but the valuation they're already working on, based on the unusual circumstances in Q1 and going into Q2, we don't know what's going to happen in Q3. I really would hold off on the material differences in the new valuation coming. It's going to be very good. The valuation coming up is going to be very good. What I'm telling you, I think it's skewed to the good because it doesn't factor in Q1 and Q2 of that we're in right now. So I really think you're going to get the valuation in June, but it's not going to factor in any of the COVID stuff. So it's going to be optimistically good.
So it's going to be as of December 31st, 2019.
Correct.
Final year.
We always pull the December 31st numbers in
But
the
that's the one
valuations.
that's the next one we're getting?
Correct.
Because 2018, the one that we got last spring, actually showed the market, our return was actually a negative, over 4% negative as of December 2018, the valuation that we got last spring. So that movement, again, I just was wondering, when are we going to get the next updated one? And we do have to be careful to see what the next one is, because it will take into account, at least through 2018 was a down year overall for our investment portfolio.
Well, 2019 wasn't, though. So that's the
We don't
issue.
have it yet.
And if you look in the comprehensive financial plan, I updated the state treasury, a valuation from 2018 numbers. So you're a year late. There is a new valuation that's out that we have factored into our comprehensive financial plan. So the 2018 valuation is factored in to the financial plan and to these numbers.
Again, I'm just sharing with council that that's the number, these evaluations they do with MERS, it'll show the year end, what it's, let's say December 31st, it was 2017, or December 31st, 2018. That's the last one that we had. We have not gotten the 2019 yet.
But you have gotten the 2018. 2017 is not the last one. We have gotten the 2018.
What I'm trying to say is I read it from the 2018 MERS valuation, for us to be aware that the market actually had a down investment return of 4% negative, and the actual evaluation was only a positive 3 because they smoothed it out right in that print. So I just wanted to make sure.
That was not the rate of return in our last valuation. You're 2 years out. You need to go to the last year's valuation. I can send that out to you again. You've got the years outpaced.
Are there any other comments, questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Mayor Rett?
Yes. Item 3, please.
Receiving the proposed 2020-2021 budget and scheduling a public hearing for May 11, 2020, to hear public comments from the interested citizens on the proposed budget.
Is there a motion?
Support.
Councilmember Ashford and Councilmember Pemberton. And our city manager is going to give us a very brief overview of this.
It's balanced. Have a nice night.
You notice I said brief.
Brief. I will keep this very brief. Before you have a $98,421,000 budget and some change balance. That includes utilities, significant capital in the water and sewer, water main replacement, sewer main replacement. You have $27,600,000 of a general fund budget. There were no cuts in public services. It was balanced without any tax increases. We see in the budget a very moderate, I believe around 3% increase in utilities. There are no layoffs, there's no cuts. Now, in the budget overview, different from previous years, is I did have to put a material asterisk. Essentially, there's a material difference in this budget that we believe is going to materialize that is, as a material, it's significant, worth noteworthy, is the COVID crisis. We're in a COVID crisis right now that we don't know what this effect is going to have on income tax. Meaning, if people get back to work, is it going to be a small blip, a 30-day blip, a 40-day blip in our income tax? We really don't know. I don't know what effect this is going to have on revenue sharing. Right now, no one's buying anything and sales tax is down. However, I know when I get out of the house, I'm going to go buy some stuff. So the question is, what will that look like for revenue sharing? Those are two relatively large indicators that I simply don't know. And I didn't want to make a budget that pretended like we knew the answers. So the truth of the matter is we're going to have to probably come back unusually different and do a mid-year adjustment. Meaning, I think by fall, by Q3 and Q4, we'll get a better ideas of what this actually needs to be effect. And if there's material changes that need to be made, I will bring you a budget amendment in the middle of the year. So if we find out that everything's terrible right now, but if you look at a broader horizon of a 12 months, will we come back relatively normal? Meaning some businesses told me they're having the best year ever, and then the next day they were closed. If they open back up and things come back, what does that look like over the long horizon? We just don't know. So in the budget overview, there is a disclosure in there about the COVID situation, because I felt like, and I wrote it because I'm trying to think of the mayor, council member, and city manager 20 years from now, 30 years from now, that pick up this budget and say, what in the world were they thinking? You know what I mean? Like, we write for the future. You know, when I first came over here, I pulled up all the audits and budgets, and I think 20 years back, like, what is this about? I wanted them to know when we made this budget that as a governing body, we recognize that this could not be accurate. We recognize that there's changes that are going to be made. We just are in the middle of a fluid situation, and we're not going to pretend like we know the answers. So, with that said, our finance team is going to be monitoring Treasury data on sales tax and revenue sharing. We're going to be monitoring what the income taxes look like when they come in. They will be delayed because we've granted longer periods of time. I think there's going to be an issue with utility bills. I think, to be quite frank, we have a lot of low to moderate income families who can't afford their bill. We have real issues in our community with people who haven't got a stimulus check and haven't been able to get through the backlog of unemployment. And so we're seeing at food distribution centers people who make $50,000 to $100,000 a year brackets showing up at the food distribution centers because they haven't got their paycheck or their stimulus check, they haven't got a paycheck, and they haven't got unemployment because it's so backlogged. And so they say 70% of America lives paycheck to paycheck. I'm sure 99% of America lives month to month. It's just the reality we live in. And so we are seeing a lot of people put into hardships that would have never fathomed that they'd be in this type of situation. Many people we work with around the city. And so I got to believe in the utility fund. We're going to have to find some different way. And in the CDBG program, the mayor and I held a conference call with HUD, and I briefed you all on that in a written briefing, that what are we going to do about people who let utility bills stack up and they need some assistance? Can we partner with community agencies like the Community Action Agency to develop some type of relief fund to help that? But again, that is going to have some type of budgetary effect on us, delayed payments, payments that come in too late. So what does that look like? What does it do with the compounded interest carried? All that things. And so we have to be conscious of the real-life situation we're in, what our residents are going through, and understand that there will be budgetary changes that have to be made. We just don't know what they are. With that said, health and human safety is number one priority. If we have to do things that are unusual and out of the ordinary to take care of our residents and to make sure that people have what they need, we need to do that. For instance, we've waived all penalties and late fees. So right now, we're not shutting people off, and we're waiving all the penalties and late fees. I paid my bill on time, but because we have such a shoestring staff, they're taking an extraordinary amount of time. Instead of having 9 people processing the bills, they only have 3. So for instance, I paid my bill, and then by the time I got my new bill, they hadn't processed my old bill yet. So I implore people out there, we're trying to do the best we can. Don't worry about late fees. You're not going to get shut off. Any late fee you get, we will manually override it, and we're not going to do that. So there'll be no late shut-off fees, no late fees. Now, do know that's a few percentage of our budget, not much, but again, there's some budgetary issues we have to look into. So we will be generous in making sure that the budgetary issues we have don't dictate policy outcomes. We want to make sure that we keep health and human safety and real-life folks in here. These are real-life challenges going on in our community, and it's a vast majority of our community right now. It is the vast majority of our community, and challenges never be so foreseen. So we want to be pragmatic, very practical in what we do, and very tactical in what we do for initiatives with our citizens. The waiving of the late fees, the no shut-offs, that was a tactical maneuver to prevent the spread. It was also a pragmatic issue, knowing that people just didn't have money to pay it because they're not working right now. So we want to keep this real, if that makes any sense. We just want to keep it real.
We want to keep it human and be sensitive.
Correct.
Thank you.
Also, for those who are bored at quarantine at home, you can download tonight. It is on the city website right now. So this lovely 100-page, 98-page document, you can make your way through before morning.
There you go.
And any questions on the budget, you can email to community comments at porthuron.org. If you have a question or concern, honestly, email your question. And if you're looking at something, you say, hey, why did this spending go up and this spending not go up? Email community comments at porthuron.org. And I literally have nothing else to do but respond to your comments right now. So I will respond to your email. Also note, this factors in our newest collective bargaining agreements. So the vast majority of increased spending throughout the different departments in the general fund was a 5% wage increase for collective bargaining and non-union employees. Also the correlating fringe factor with that. It also factors in our new unfunded liability payment, which is greatly reduced. So what is nice is that our reduced and unfunded liability payment, we were able to reduce the fringe benefit rate by 5%, which was able to offset some of the raises. So sometimes you got to spend money to save money. The collective bargaining agreements we did are proving to be very equitable to us. And so I appreciate our collective bargaining agreements coming to the table and finding a way for us to save money in the long run and put more money in their pockets.
Thank you. We will, in addition to scheduling this public hearing for May 11th, and normally we get together as a council for a work session that following week. So I don't know if Cindy wants to send out a notice to everybody and ask if they're available. Usually we do it on a Tuesday or Wednesday of the following week. So keep that in mind, and she'll send a notice out, and you can reply back to her as to whether or not you're available. Okay? And we can take the vote.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes. Item 4.
Receiving the proposed capital improvement program and scheduling a public hearing for May 11th, 2020 to hear public comments from interested citizens on the proposed capital improvement program.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second? Councilmember Beeden. Is there discussion?
Mayor Rapp?
Councilmember Warden.
I just wanted to counsel here. Capital Improvement Program, I picked out a page on your packet. It's page 51. It's actually 1.4.A. Starts off, I think it's page 7 of the actual improvement program. It's 7 and 8. If you guys have access to that. But it's under, what I wanted to point out is, for example, in the police section, what I liked about it is the capital improvement program had number 3, showed a police department first floor reconfiguration, and it states if a new police department headquarters is not going to occur, then, and then it goes on to what their plan could be, and some capital potential expenditures. And then number 4 was the police building new headquarters. Now again, this capital improvement plan has had a new potential relocation or new police headquarters on it, and they changed it last year. And I like the fact here that they have, the planning side on this shows 2 different ifs, like, hey, if it's not going to happen, then these are the expenditures to what we're looking to probably plan to do. But in the fire section, right underneath it on page 8, our recent council goal session, it was February 20-something, that we had as a goal session to evaluate the 3 current stations and if it's feasible to what it might cost to keep them. And then also there's another option if they're looking to close Central Station and then combine that with a new station with one of the outlying. And if you take a look here in number 1, it has the fire station replacement, which of course is on the capital improvement for replacing 2, incorporating Central Station and one of the outstations for one new location. And then number 2 is fire station remodel. It says phased remodeling on a fire department outstation in conjunction with the planned consolidation of Central Station and the opposite outstation. What I'm missing here is the third option, is there's no plan if the new fire station replacement for Central Station is going to be closed. If it's not going to be closed, then this is maybe the planning we should be looking at for all 3 stations of what it may cost to do. I know we have a study out there, but it caught me off guard that there was the police capital improvement plan does have both options, and this one doesn't have any option if we plan on keeping, if it comes back to plan on keeping it. So I just thought that would be something to send to the Planning Commission back, if they're the ones doing it, that we should probably make sure that they have a plan added to this if it's not going to be closing and relocating the Central Station. We need to have a plan for all 3 of what it may take for each one. And we won't know the exact number, I don't think, until we get that study back, but I just thought it was interesting to see the Planning Commission handling the police department, which I thought was great. And it's just missing the one for the fire station.
Madam Mayor, if I can provide some clarity.
Sure.
The police department is currently housed in a building we know is structurally sound. The police department is currently in a facility that we don't have any feasibility structural engineer issues with. So if we're not going to sell City Hall, which we have no discussions on the table with any developer right now, to be honest, there's not really anyone kicking the tires right now. If we're not going to sell City Hall and move, which has been a stated goal for many of the council and goal-setting sessions for the last couple of years as a stated goal, if that's not going to happen, we know that the building that we're in is currently structurally sound and that the police department can invest in reconfiguration of their department if need be. The key difference here is the fire department replacement has always been in the capital improvement plan for as long as I've been here, in case any grant funding opens up, which, by the way, because of the COVID stimulus bill and the CARES Act, there could be some grant funding opening up. We're researching that right now. But we've had that in there for many years. The issue is we can't budget a reconfiguration when we don't know if the fire department is structurally sound, if it passes an engineering safety test. So you are right, Councilman Warden, we are waiting on that study to determine if we can rehabilitate those 3 stations. And if the business plan and the cost efficiency is to rehabilitate those 3 stations, then I got to believe that's what the mayor and council will do. So we're waiting for the study before we can do exactly what you've asked. We simply don't have the data or information to add that in right now. So we can do that next year, though.
Yeah, and I'm just bringing it up because I did see on the police side, it says that a TBD, to be determined, instead of a funding source, and I thought that would at least show. So my 5 cents.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, at this point, we're just scheduling the public hearing, which will come at May 11th, and then obviously adoption at the end of the month. But as has always been stated, this is just a wish list of things. It certainly is no guarantee any one of those things is going to happen.
And to be quite frank, budgetary issues because of the COVID and financial crisis that we're going through right now, it is a good chance I bring a plan to defer capital even this year, plans that we have projected for this year. If they can wait, we may do that. So just because it's even in this budget, every project we have going on in the next fiscal year, we're going to come before council and we're going to say, is this time pertinent? Can it wait? Should it wait? And that's a conversation ultimately is a council decision, and that'll be up to the elected officials.
Thank you. We will take the vote.
Councilmember Warden,
No.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton,
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. That concludes our agenda. We do have a couple announcements here. One, the city routinely monitors our drinking water quality and annually provides to our customers the results through our Consumer Confidence Report, CCR. The CCR is available online at www.porthuron.org under CCR. And a link is printed on each water bill for your convenience. The 2019 report is now available. To request a paper copy to be mailed, call 810-984-9763. Also, a couple of other things. Just a reminder to everyone that's important that they fill out their census. I think people have time right now to do that. I know I've done it. It does only take just a few minutes to do online. If you've received it in the mail, it just gives you a number you put in there and you just fill out your questions. But it's very important that you do that for districts and legislative districts, and also for any funding that we get for different things, CDBG funds, et cetera. School aid funds, all of those things are based on your population. If you don't report your correct population, you're not going to get the proper funding. So I encourage people to fill out their census while they have a chance to do that. They have delayed the census a little bit as far as timing, but it's still important that you get it done. And we want to have a good showing in Port Huron. It's only about 50% statewide right at this point that have filled it out, and we're no better than that. So I think that we can probably do a pretty good job of doing that. Also, just as a note, we have several public hearings that are on the agenda for May 11th, which is our next council meeting in 2 weeks. And I just wanted to state that because obviously things are a little precarious with having to stay home and not be out, if anybody has any comments that they wish to have included in those public hearings, they can send them into the city clerk's office. And normally we don't do this, but I think that we should make an exception to read people's comments in under public hearing or public audience if they so desire, rather than having them have to show up themselves, just for safety purposes. So I just wanted to open that up. Also, normally we have the National Day of Prayer Breakfast on May 7th, which has been canceled. But in something that's going to be done that day is at noon at McMorran North Lot. There is going to be a prayer service. It's going to be a short ceremony, about a half an hour. Everybody is welcome to attend. You just drive in with your car. Do not get out of your car. It's going to be tuned into 90.7 Hope FM, and everybody will be able to listen from their car. But that would be May 7th at noon, and that is being coordinated by Operation Transformation. Just as another reminder that after listening to Dr. Mercantile talk too, that is a lot of information is available on our website. I encourage people to visit our homepage. They can click on one area, it takes you to all the reports, it takes you to places that are serving takeout, things that are available funding-wise to help people out, and it's a very good resource. So I suggest people do take advantage of that. And I'd like to thank Chief Platzer and his staff for the Police Department annual report. Normally they come to a council meeting and give that, but obviously due to the fact that we're trying to keep these as short as we possibly can, everybody on council did get it mailed or emailed to them. And I just want to say it was a good report, and congratulations on a good year. It seems like the stats are doing very well, so good job. And then there's two things I want to ask the city manager to report on. One is the glitch with the water bills, and the other one is to kind of give an update on the seed program, which has been extremely successful. So if you do that, I'd appreciate it.
One of the issues we had with the water bills is it's a very honest to God simple mistake. We clicked and drugged the old data file in, we bill out in sectors, so only 1/3 of our residents get a bill at any given time. The reason for that is we billed all 12,000 bills out the same week. We couldn't process 12,000 bills without additional staff, and so the good news, if we have a mistake, it only goes out to 1/3 of the city. We have begun printing new bills. On the bottom, it will note this is a corrected bill because of what happened. We apologize for the mistake. It is 100% my fault at the end of the day. What occurred is when we have many staff who are not working in the building, who are working from home, typically we have internal checks and balances, so I'm looking over your shoulder, I'm licking the stamp and looking at it, making sure everything's right. When we're working separate, sometimes that accountability is short distance, and that's exactly what happens. And so I'm the one who sets staffing, so it's my fault. Additionally, the seed program, one of the things we did is I authorized through the emergency order is we're very worried about food insecurity, meaning people who've never had to worry about buying food because they always have a paycheck. They don't have a paycheck, they can't get processed for unemployment, the stimulus check didn't come. We have a large portion of our population who've gone now more than a month without any type of income. And so we don't know how long this is going to be. So the mayor and I just want to say for a moment, I appreciate Mayor Rep. Her and I have talked.
I probably talked to you more during this than I talk to you normally.
I talk to you more than I talk to my wife when I'm living with her in quarantine. 10 times a day, 20 times a day I talk to Pauline, and that is literally no exaggeration. The mayor has been calling all the community stakeholders, whether it's the Council on Aging, whether it's the food banks, whether it's the Community Action Agency, whether it's all these different groups we work with. Mayor Rep has been coordinating those communication efforts to find out what the needs are. So that the city, not only do we have that conversation with HUD, and met with the regional HUD director to find out what we could use this money for, which is vastly different. Typically, there's a 15% cap on your CDBG money for service groups. That cap has been removed because they know that the need is urgent and the need is now, and they want to get it out. There's typically a 30-day public hearing time. They've shortened that down to five days of waiting time because the need is now. People are going hungry. We got to start it now. So we didn't wait on the seed program because one, the distribution, now it's in week 2. We've distributed 500 seed packets. We now have more than 1,000 people have written requests or emailed requests in. And so that's important because 500 people came to City Hall at the door. And at one point I was refilling the bucket and I worried people were abusing it because I thought, well, I'll put 10 out because if someone takes all of them, then they only got 10, I can put more out. And I thought for sure someone must be taking them, and until I sat there and watched from the window one day, and we had dozens of people social distancing, coming, taking their bag and leaving. So 500 people took the time to come here to get their seed, which means it wasn't just something that was given to them. They showed effort to get it, which I'm hopeful they'll start planting. We have 1,000 people, so we're working on now getting the labels made. The first 300 will show up tomorrow, the additional 500. Some of the issues we have is when you say Port Huron, it's like, well, I live in Port Huron, but you actually live in Fort Gratiot. People don't see political boundaries as we do. If you're in St. Clair County, they think they're from Port Huron. So we do have a large amount of that are from people who technically are in the townships. However, the Community Foundation is working with us because they don't want to see those people, that need go unmet. So if there's a need for gardens, and so we're hopefully that our goal is we started early enough where they can get their seeds in the first part of May when it's planting season, because the CDBG funds won't formally be released until about June. And so we want to work with our current fund balances. If there's needs where we need to authorize a food truck someplace, with consultation with the mayor and all of you, we're going to continue to look at those real needs. Right now, we're feeling pretty good. The United Way, the Community Action Agency, Operation Transformation, Mid-City Nutrition, they're doing incredible work getting these food trucks out there, making sure that people have food. And so we want to make sure that we're that reinforcement holding people up, holding these organizations up. So if they need help, just call us, and the mayor is in constant contact with those organizations. So we're feeling pretty good about it. So now we'll be able to get the disbursement going because it takes a few weeks. We didn't want them to miss planting seasons because the seeds were in disbursement. So now we're over 500, soon to be 1,000 seeds that will be gardens. And this is really about, if this goes on or we go to a phase 2, right now we're hearing some issues about some meatpacking plants and all these things. It scares people, and nothing brings reassurance to people like I'm self-sufficient. I have the ability to grow my own produce. And the more produce we grow locally, the more burden we take off the grocery stores to supply that produce. So I will tell you, it's an innovative program, and I am getting phone calls and requests from cities all over the state. And even HUD called and said, tell us about this program because people want to see if they can do this in their community. And so I think it's something that we'll see expanded to other communities across the state who are utilizing the CDBG funds. So again, we want to keep it real. What's the need? just be honest with us. Your family's struggling for food. And remember, there's a lot of families who've never had to ask for help. People who have good paying jobs, they work to take care of themselves. This is not something they brought upon themselves. And so if you're a family out there that's struggling and you need assistance, reach out to the Community Action Agency, reach out to Mid-City Nutrition, reach out to United Way. There's help out there. Don't be prideful, because I know it's a lot of people who are just a little embarrassing. Some of the food truck lines, people are embarrassed that I've never had to ask for help, and now I got to take care of my family. And so we want to be real. We want to be the humanity of this, to see what is the need is real. If this was my own family members, what would we be doing? And so there's a time when bureaucracy can take a back seat, and real life pragmatic policy takes over. And so we're trying to just get bureaucracy out of the way, and we'll worry about the bureaucracy later, but we want to make sure the real needs with the real resources are met every day in our community.
Thank you. Is there anything else from City Council?
Mayor Rep?
Yes, Councilmember Harris.
Just a little comment. The largest food drive in the country probably is not going to happen this year.
Yeah, your mail. It's true.
Food drive. So there's another thing. But in the last week or so, I've had a couple of long-term businesses in Fort Huron. One I stopped at today on Deer Avenue, and went in there to get some eyeglass repair work. He said he's about 30 days from shut the door. We got, and it's not, I know it's not our problem because we don't manage the funds, but he wasn't one of the fortunate 30 that got $5,000. And he also wasn't one of the ones that put in for the federal money that's kind of gone, and he didn't get in there in time for that. And I think, like Jay was saying, it's really an issue. We've got some places in Fort Huron that won't survive this. And I think we have to do something to help everybody, kind of remind them that we see something like that. And James said that needs a help or a hand or something like that, we've got to do it. And this guy's really serious. I see about once a year or something. And he's that close to shutting down. So, and it's a business that's been for, I think, 70 years or so. So we've got to look at this carefully. So thank you.
There are going to be some additional funds that are proposed in the CDBG that is going to be administered by the EDA, and it's that he can apply again. It's that same, and it's going to be a little bit, it won't be quite as quick. I think the last one they had to apply within 3 days, and they had over 200 people apply for it, which was a lot, and they didn't have as much to give away. However, that being said, that was for whole of St. Clair County. What we have at this particular round and what we're doing with CDBG funds is strictly City of Port Huron businesses. So I would encourage him to, when he sees that notice, to apply again, which probably will come out toward mid-May through the EDA. That it's going to be a pretty simple application. He should try to do that again.
Real quick before I get down, I do want to thank the mayor and council. I want people at home to know that almost all the council members I have talked to, either phone calls, you texted me, you sent me an email, to you council members who have made contact and have asked how the employees are doing. Do we have enough PPE masks? Do we have, when we looked at the response plans, I have been sending out briefings, what we're doing. We took swift actions, the administration did, very swift actions. We've done a lot of things like cleaning, microbial cleaning. We were one of the first communities to start doing it. Now everyone's doing it. I appreciate your understanding on some of the actions that I've taken and directed the staff to take. I appreciate you constantly calling, emailing, asking things, asking questions. We have 440 employees, 220 full-time. No one has COVID yet. I think we can say it's probably in good part because of the mitigation measures. We have police officers and firefighters who are actively engaging in it. We have firefighters who go to a scene, and it may be 6 days later they find out that it was because the testing's delayed. So it could be 6 days later they find out that they were exposed to COVID. We've had firefighters who couldn't go home to their families. They had to go someplace else because they were exposed. And so this is real for our employees. We have employees who are coming in to open the mail, to make sure payments get processed. We have employees who are working from home. So if you call and leave a message because a manhole cover popped off or you see something, a fire hydrant leaking, we have people who are answering those phone calls from home. So government, although distant, is working. We have the clerk's office, which is pulling off an election, which is now by mail. So typically you have all these voters going to polling booths. Now all that mail has to be processed by our clerk's office, which only has a staff of 3. So these people are coming in, handling mail, oftentimes mail that could be dangerous. And so I mean, these employees are really out there keeping government working, and so I appreciate you calling and asking about them. They're doing well. It is a struggle for their families and them, especially when they have to be distant. It is scary. I know police officers and firefighters sign up for danger, but I assure you, ain't no one in the academy talked about a pandemic. So these are very new challenges. They're adapting quickly. Our people are brilliant, whether it be the cleaning protocols for the fire stations, the fire rigs, or the patrol cars, or the offices. They're adapting remarkably quickly, and I believe that's protecting our people. So our city charter gives the city manager emergency powers for these types of situations, but that also, I appreciate your understanding when we do take swift action, asking the questions, sharing the concerns. Your guidance has been very helpful. I want to thank Pauline, the mayor. Just so you know, the mayor, this is not a full-time job. She gets paid, what, $50? And the amount of hours you've been on the phone with me the last few weeks, it's been more than a full-time job. I can't juggle all the phone calls myself, so having the mayor who can call and reach out to these stakeholders and help me has been critical for us to take that feedback, to get the needs, and to work with that, especially when we're trying to develop a CDBG plan in a rapid fashion. Knowing that she's been able to reach out, that has just been very helpful. So thank you for your understanding. Thank you, Mayor Rep, for essentially becoming a full-time city employee again.
Yeah.
And it's been grateful. So,
There you go.
thank you.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, just quickly,
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to commend you too, because I've been on, I'm out at work, but I'm on the computer, you're on there on the virtual Zoom
Yeah.
things, you're representing us here and there on all those different ones that I've seen you on, so
Yeah.
thank you for doing that,
Oh, you're
Pauline.
welcome.
And I also want to thank you for mentioning the census tonight, because we had a meeting today, I think, and here are the stats for Port Huron, and you were close for the census. Port Huron has a 59.8% response rate, making us in the ranking 273 in the state, and 44% of the responses came through the internet. So the mayor was very correct. We need to get in there and put in our information like it doesn't even take 5 minutes.
No.
You know, so just please go in there and do that. And the significance is even when Dr. Mercantile was talking about COVID and the data and everything, all this makes a difference. All that goes into that data that we're using, all the monies that come in here. James just talked about the different nonprofit organizations. I mean, if we don't get our numbers in there, then they don't get that money that rightly should come to us, and you wonder why you're left behind. You're left behind because you didn't fill out your census. So you need to get somewhere, get to a computer or mail it back and fill out those census. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mayor Rep, just a couple, you mentioned the upcoming election. Is there going to be any open polls at all, or is it all by mail?
So with the governor's executive order, we will not be having the typical polling locations. So throughout the city, those 10 polling locations will not be open. Everyone was sent an application for an absentee ballot. It did include return postage from the state of Michigan. When that does come back to us, you can mail it in, or you can simply take a picture, email it to us. We do mail you out the ballot basically the same day, and that also includes that return postage for you to get that back to us. But within that executive order, we are having one location on Election Day. It'll be the city clerk's office from 7 to 8 p.m., and that will be open for individuals who may not have received their absentee ballot in the mail, for any individuals with any type of disabilities who may need to use our voter assist terminal, or for individuals who are not currently registered to vote. They can come into the city clerk's office with proof of residency. We can get them registered to vote, and we can get them an absentee ballot. I do want to stress, though, it is still going to be processed as an absentee ballot. It will be going up to our absentee county board, where we'll have 7 tabulators that will process all of the absentee ballots that we have.
Did you say 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
Yes.
Just for the 1 hour?
Just like a polling location, the clerk's office is open from 7 a.m. to 8
Oh,
p.m.
a.m., okay.
Yep. And then also on Saturday, the Saturday prior, the city clerk's office will be open from 8 to 4 p.m. We still are mandated to hold those office hours for individuals to come in, because the deadline to actually mail the absentee ballot to everyone is Friday at 5 p.m. So again, the clerk's office will be open from 8 to 4 on Saturday. We will be open on Monday too, from 8 to 4:30, and then of course on Election Day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Thank you very much this is unprecedented times for this I had a quick question of the, you mentioned for the next meeting, or the upcoming meetings, you were instructing, I think, to the public, if they're going to want to have a question, like public comment for the meeting particular, to send it to the clerk's office?
Yeah, she will comprise
But
them.
not the community comments one that
No,
are sent?
city clerk's
Separate,
office.
okay. And then the
Yep.
other thing is, just, I know you're busy, I sent a little email to request for the the printed worksheets for the budget, and I'm not sure how open you are, just give me a call when it's there. Oh, already? Oh, great. She's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Meeting adjourned. Everyone safe?
Yep, God bless you.